With the somewhat modular nature of the Nintendo Switch, a lot of third parties have created accessories that further enhance the various playstyles beyond what's available inside the Nintendo Switch box. Of course, we have things like the Satisfy grip, which is something I'm a huge fan of that just makes handheld mode more comfortable. And then we have the flip grip, which allows you to play vertically in handheld mode. And then even things like the Genki Covert dock, which creates a very portable and travel-friendly dock for when you're on the go and want to hook up to a TV. But today we'll be talking about another interesting option, sort of similar to the Satisfy grip, but different in many ways, the Split Pad Pro from HORI. Now, full disclosure, HORI sent me this Midnight Blue Split Pad Pro for free, but it is something I was interested in buying. I actually wanted to pick up the original. It's now available in 3 new colors, but the original was something that was kind of branded with Daemon X Machina, and it was actually kind of hard to find in the stores. So when I was looking around places like Best Buy, I would never see it in the wild. And then it seemed to either stop getting manufactured or it just became really difficult to find. And I was only able to find it, from like third-party resellers that were marking it up. So that was the reason I never picked it up then. And then I think HORI realized there was some demand around the Split Pad Pro, and branding it alongside Daemon X Machina was kind of a weird, very specific thing. So it makes sense that they kind of re-released it. It's exactly the same as the Daemon X Machina version, but now it's available in 3 new colors. This is the Midnight Blue version, but there's also a transparent black, which has a cool kind of like retro, smoky, transparent plastic, and then a volcanic red. But I really like the look of the blue, and they sent that over to me. And I just kind of wanted to do a quick rundown of the advantages and disadvantages to this accessory. It's definitely got some advantages to the stock Joy-Con, but there are some drawbacks and some weird little details that are worth mentioning, because I could see a lot of people really enjoying this, but I could also see some people being frustrated with certain aspects. So with all that out of the way, let's just go through what those things are. You can see here I'm playing Super Mario 3D All-Stars. If you were wanting to get a physical copy, I hope you're able to find one. But I thought this would kind of be a perfect game to showcase some of the differences with this grip. So I think actually I'll start off with maybe some of the cons, some of the negatives, and then finish with the positives, because there's definitely plenty of those too, just so you can kind of get a feel of what this thing is like to play with. Now, while I wouldn't necessarily call this a con, it's just something that took a little getting used to. As you can see, I have to be careful not to get this out of frame. When you have the Split Pad Pro attached, it definitely makes the Switch extremely wide. The Switch was already kind of wide to begin with, and this just takes it to another level. And at first, something was a little odd about holding my hands so far apart when playing, but I will say it's something I've definitely gotten more used to as I've played with it more. So I don't know if it's fair to call that a con necessarily, but just be warned, when you first put this on, it will feel a little strange if you're used to kind of just playing with the standard Joy-Con. So right off the bat, the Split Pad Pro doesn't contain any electronic components. There's no batteries inside, there's no way to charge it. You can't use it wirelessly like a standard pair of Joy-Con and use the Bluetooth. These will only work connected to the Switch. So that's just something to keep in mind, but obviously it makes the most sense to have these connected to the Switch. I don't know that these would really be the most comfortable things to use sort of disconnected like individual Joy-Con. So that makes sense, but then again, because there's no electronic components inside, you're not gonna have gyro controls or HD rumble. So that's a little bit of a drawback, but obviously that's where they were kind of saving you the most cost. So I think that's a fair trade-off. And that's kind of one of the interesting details. I've seen some reviews that say because there's no batteries or anything inside here, these aren't going to wake the Switch up, but I've actually been able to do that. But I will tell you that it's definitely finicky. There's kind of this weird delay. Sometimes I have to press it multiple times or I have to hold it, and there we go. And now it's unlocked. But I have found that if I have the Switch kind of, in sleep mode and it's been left that way for a while, sometimes I just won't be able to wake it up with the home button, even when these are attached. So that's kind of a weird little detail, but definitely not a huge deal. There you can always just press the power button and get things on. And then once you have power on, there you go, you're right in. And then as far as maybe a couple of the other drawbacks for me, at least, well, I don't know, that this is kind of just nitpicking at this point, but I do feel like a lot of the buttons have a bit of a mushy feel to them. Some are better than others. The face buttons are pretty good. There is a little bit of travel before you're kind of clicking in, but the face buttons still have a clickier feel to them than a lot of the other buttons. The joysticks feel good. They're a little high, but they have a nice spring to them. They seem super accurate, easy to press in. The joysticks feel nice. But I think my biggest complaints as far as mushiness go would have to be the D-pad, which is a shame because that's, could be seen as a big advantage of this grip since the standard Switch Joy-Con don't have a D-pad, you just have the 4 face buttons. So I do wish that the D-pad felt a little clickier. It still totally does the job. It is pretty accurate, but it does have that kind of little bit of a squishy feel to it. And these buttons don't matter as much because you won't be using them as often. The turbo buttons and then your macro buttons for the assignable triggers on the back here, they are extremely squishy, mushy, really kind of rubbery, but that's okay. They do work, but those would be and the home button as well is pretty mushy feeling. But again, not a huge deal. The triggers feel pretty good. The L and R feel really nice. They've got nice travel and nice clickiness. But the ZL and ZR are definitely a little on the mushier side, but still good, still better than the D-pad for me. And then just one other slight weird thing for me is I kind of wish that the Switch screen sat more flush with these, but you can see it's kind of set back and recessed below the edge of the split pad, which I don't know, is just ever so slightly odd to me. Definitely not a big deal. And yeah, as far as the not so great stuff, I think that covers it. But now let's finish up with the positives, which there are definitely plenty. Right off the bat, and this I guess will be personal, but I actually love the way the Switch looks with the split pad attached. It's definitely super wide. Maybe it's just me enjoying kind of the novelty of it to have this different looking system, but it does create a very different looking console. So if you're kind of looking to refresh your look, you're definitely going to get it. But beyond that, let's just talk about the main function of the Split Pad Pro, which is for increased comfort and really to make it feel like you're playing with a Pro controller in handheld mode. And out of any of the grips out there, I think the Split Pad Pro really gets the closest to the feel of the Pro controller. It is maybe a little bit thinner. It's not gonna feel quite as substantial in your hands. The grips are just maybe a little more shallower than a Pro controller. But I play in handheld mode quite a bit, and I almost always play with my Satisfy grip. Without that, the standard Joy-Con really do get uncomfortable after a while. Kind of ends up hurting the palm of my hand. They're just not all that ergonomic. It makes sense for portability, but they're not the most comfortable things. So I will say the Split Pad Pro is a huge improvement in the ergonomics department. And then the other major advantage to the Split Pad Pro compared to something like the Satisfy grip, sorry I keep bringing that up, but I think that makes the most sense to compare this with. The biggest advantage the Split Pad Pro has over the Satisfy grip is that you don't have to remove these to dock your Switch. There's these little braces in the back that actually line up perfectly flush when you're docking the Switch. That's kind of cool that you don't have to pull these on and off. You can play in handheld mode and drop it right back in, as long as you have enough space on either side of where your dock is to accommodate for the much wider Switch you're dealing with. And then I guess as far as other advantages, we kind of talked about it before, but you do have the macro triggers on the back for button assignments. Those work, just as you expect them to. Press your assign button, and then you choose your button that you'd like assigned to which pad, and then you press the pad and you're good to go. And yeah, I think that's about it. I feel bad. I feel like I maybe focused a little more on the negatives, but I just wanted to cover all the bases. Obviously, with these being $49.99, there's going to be some compromises made to hit that price point. But I can say this is another plus of the Split Pad Pro. Because you don't have any rumble motors inside, they are extremely light. When they're detached from the Switch, they feel kind of hollow and empty, which some people might say, oh, they feel really cheap. But I think that's great for how you'll be using these attached to the Switch. They really don't add much weight. I think these are actually, these end up being lighter than the Satisfy grip when it's attached, because obviously you have the standard Joy-Con attached, which are actually pretty heavy for how small they are. That's something to keep in mind too. It is really nice when you're just kind of laying on the couch and your arms aren't going to get tired holding onto this because it is so light. And yeah, I think that's kind of all there is to say about it. It's a really cool option to have. I think the price point makes sense. It works well. You can dock it, but at the same time, when all is said and done, I still find myself using the Satisfy grip more. I'm often not switching back between docked and handheld play when I'm playing one game. I'm usually either like, okay, I'm gonna set up and sit in front of the TV, or I just feel like lying on the couch and I'm gonna be doing the handheld mode thing. So it is a huge advantage that you're able to dock this, but the fact that I just have to pull my Satisfy grip off if I do want to dock it isn't that big a deal to me. And then of course, I do appreciate still having rumble when you're using something like the Satisfy grip. It becomes a little muted, when you've got the grip on there, but you're still getting the HD rumble coming through from the Joy-Con. So that is something I kind of miss. I know some people don't care about it at all, but I actually do really like the rumble. It's actually something that keeps me from using my Switch Lite quite as often as I thought I would. So that's why I think whether or not this pad is going to be for you is really going to come down to how you play and kind of your personal preferences on those specific details. If you don't care about rumble or gyro controls, I don't really like moving the screen in handheld mode to manage the camera, so I don't miss the gyro, but I do miss the rumble. If you don't care about it, that kind of ticks this up as maybe an option that would be good for you. And yeah, I think that really is all there is to say about it. I'll pull one of these off so you can see how easy that is to do. And then you have that little brace up at the top there that, makes it a little more sturdy. There is a ever so slight flex just because it's so wide when you're using these, but I don't think that's doing anything to the Switch rails. I think the flex is actually on the pad itself. So yeah, I think that covers everything. Sorry that was a bit disjointed and all over the place, but wanted to give my honest thoughts about this controller after using it for several weeks now, so I've really kind of gotten used to it. So, and there are times when I'm like, I want the Split Pad Pro right now for this game. This just is gonna feel right. I've been using it a little bit with the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, and I'll leave a link down below. You can pick up the Split Pad Pro on Amazon or directly from HORI's website for $49.99. And yeah, I think that covers it. I really like this blue, and I do like the new color options too. The transparent black would probably be my second choice. It just kind of has that nice retro look to it. So you might see these out and about in the store, and then hopefully you'll have a little better idea of what exactly is going to be inside the box. And I think that does it. So if you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And until next time, I will catch you guys in the next one.